Hello everyone, in this video I'll be going over how to use the XEntity inventory and item system version 2.0. In this version I have added a lot of new features and I've also fixed some of the bugs found in the previous version. I will go over pretty much all the features in this video and how to set them up, including the basics from the previous version, so how to get the inventory and item going, So this video is going to be pretty long, so I will add timestamps on it so you can jump around and find whatever you need, right? Okay, so let's get started. First thing, we need to add a player inventory that we can use to store our items. So let's create a canvas. Item container canvas, and what we need to do is go into the XEntity GameKit folder, prefabs, and drag in this container prefab in here, and you can see it creates this UI, and we can just rename it to player inventory. And if we just go in here, open the item container script, we can actually define a title here as well. We'll just call it inventory, and you can change the UI toggle key if you want. So essentially pressing this will open and close the container UI, and by default it is I, so I'll just keep it at that. And you'll see it takes in a container interactor. It does say do not assign interactor on external containers. External containers are anything that's not a player container, right? Player inventory. External container would be like a loot box or like a storage chest, right? We'll go over how to use that as well. So we do need to assign a container interactor here. So the interactor would be essentially the player. So in my scene, the player is just let me go in here. The player is just a little cylinder here, and your player should have a rigid body and a capsule collider, well, not any collider actually. And it doesn't really matter if you're using gravity or not. It just needs to have a rigid body so it can interact properly with other items and have the collisions be detected properly. So go to your player and add the interactor script, and it takes in two variables: the main camera, this is for the raycasting, and the inventory, so the player inventory, which we created here. Player inventory. Okay, that's perfect. And if we go into the player inventory again, we need to assign the interactor, which is the player, right? So the inventory UI should be working now. Let me maximize here, but I can't pick up any of the items because I haven't created them yet. Technically, they're just 3D models. So if I hit I now, you can see the inventory UI opens. And in this version, you can drag around the inventory UI freely. And also there's a close button, so you can close it with your mouse. Right. Okay, so let's create some items that we can add to the inventory. So there's two types of there's two ways essentially to drop items and pick them up, right? So one is to harvest them through harvestable objects, such as a tree. For example, you don't want to pick up items instantly when you click the tree. You want to click it multiple times, cut it, and then pick it up, right? So for that, you can have harvestable objects. And for small objects like that in the world that you can pick up on click instantly, you can add the instant harvest script to them, and you can pick them up instantly just by clicking on them. Right, so we'll do both. First though, you need to create the individual items, like the template for the items or the data essentially, so they're scriptable objects. I've created some already, for example, apple, log, mushroom, stick, stone. So to do that, you can just right click, create XEntity, and then item. Okay, so they do take some data. You can assign an item type, so by default they're all going to be default type, but you can choose one of these, or you can create your custom types with custom use functions, right? I will also show how to do that. So takes an item name, items for slots, so how many items is going to be in each slot of this item specifically. And you can also have item icon. Well, these are kind of needed. It's not that you can have, you must have them. So you can have an item icon, it's just a 2D sprite, the size, yeah, the default size is 216 by 216. It fits perfectly. And the prefab, all your items should be a prefab, and you need to assign that prefab in here. And you can have item information here, essentially the description, which you can also view in the inventory. Okay, so I have the items created, but something very important, we have to select all of them, right click and add to item list. So every time you add a new item, just select all of them and do this, because that's just the safest way to make sure the items are counted for in the item manager. We did get an error saying item manager does not exist in the scene, so all we have to do is go into XEntity Game Kit 2.0, prefabs, and just drag in the item manager. And this is the list. You can add it manually, but I don't suggest it. You should just select all your items and use the editor function. So let's go back to my items, select all of them again, and add to item list. They're all added. You can see if I try to add it again, it doesn't add any duplicates. It just says they exist in the list already. Okay. And if I go back to the manager, you can see the items are added. Okay, perfect. So essentially, we have the item data all set up. However, we haven't linked the item data, the scriptable objects, to these 3D models yet, right? So to do that, I can actually go into prefabs, not prefabs, demo, prefabs, yeah. So I have these item prefabs created already. You could just add it in the scene. Where is it? Yeah, you can add it in the scene, like in the scene view inspector, but I suggest just adding your instant harvest scripts on the, oh, you can see this one already has it added. Adding your instant harvest script on the prefabs, because this means every time you create a new prefab, the script will be automatically added, right? So just go to your item prefabs, select all of them. Apparently this one already has the instant harvest added, so select all of them and add the instant harvest script. This basically means they will be harvested on click, so they will be added to the player inventory on click, right? And we have to assign the item that will be added. So harvest item for the apple, it's apple. For log, stick, stone. Okay, the mushroom's already added, right? Okay. Oh, we don't have any mushroom in the scene. Let's just add that. Right, perfect. Yeah, so essentially the items are set up now as well. All we have to do is start the game. And let's maximize again. And if we go close to the items, you can see they get highlighted. And if I click on them, they get collected. Let's collect all of them. And if I'm far enough away, I can't interact. So you can also define that interaction range. You can see and select, hit I. You can see all the items are added. So let's show some of the new inventory functions. So by default, the inventory slot options has another function for item information. So if you hit info, it will show that little information panel here. Right. So you can see it changes for each of the item, right, accordingly. And also another new function is the bulk remove. So removing just removing just removes a single item. However, if you bulk remove, it removes all of the items. So you can see if I collect, 2 items are added. Okay, that's that. And so that's the instant harvest, so how to pick up items on click. But if you want to have a harvestable object, for example the tree, so if I just find the prefabs for the tree, so all of the trees, and I add the harvestable script to them. So this takes an HP, so I'll have all of them take a HP of 3, so it will take 3 hits for them to be harvested. And their harvesting is a little bit different. They drop items instead of, they drop multiple items and multiple quantity of items instead of just a single item. And they also have a chance parameter. Oh, I can't modify them. Oh, apparently this has it all set up, so that's interesting. Let me just delete this and just re-add it harvestable. Okay, So just select all of them, and I'll have all of them have a HP of 3, so they will all take 3 hits. And wait, I don't have this added to the scene. Let's just add that as well. There we go. Okay. And another thing is the harvest drops. So harvest drop is the items that will be dropped. You can have any number of items that can be dropped, and they can have chances. So it will be dropped maybe 50% of the time. So let's have this item be dropped 50% of the time, but we haven't selected an item. Let's select like an apple. So apple would be dropped 50% of the time. But we also want to, let's just say, have another apple that will always be dropped. So let's just have another apple, have it drop 100% of the time. So essentially what this means is it will always have at least 1 apple, but 50% of the time it will have 2 apples. Okay, and also for a tree, we also want to drop a log 100% of the time, maybe 2 logs 100% of the time. We also want to drop, let's just say, a stick only maybe 80% of the time, or maybe 75% of the time. Okay, now that's set up for the trees. And let's just go into that. Yeah, so they're added already because they're prefab references. So if we start the game again, we can see the trees get highlighted because they are also interactable objects now. So if I go in the interaction range, I hit it multiple times, you can see a bunch of items are dropped. They're kind of dropped in the same position. So if I just hit I, you can see it drops an apple and 2 logs. Do that again. Drops these. And try that. This. Right, interesting. Okay, so all these are dropped, and let's show you some other functionalities. So the stacks of items, you can drag them and you can actually drop single items now. So when you're dragging, if you go over a slot and right click, they will drop single items. You can see you can do that, and also you can just stack it on top of each other. But you can only hold 3 logs in a slot, so that's that. And another thing is when you're dragging, if you press left shift, it will break the stack in half, and it will drop half of the stack on the hovered slot, right? So you can see that. And yep. And if you have like a odd number, it will drop like 1 less than the half, essentially. That's not okay. So that's done. Now we want to have like a storage chest system, right? So let's have that going. So I have this storage chest model already, so you should have let me just delete this so I can show you, so I can add it to the prefab actually. You should have collider on your storage chest. I have it because then the clicks won't be detected if you don't have it. So I will add an external item container to this, and you'll see do not assign interactors on external item containers, right? So we do not need to assign this. I could have technically removed it from the inspector on the external item container, but then I would have to write a whole custom editor script just for this, and that's just unnecessary. We can put a title, storage chest. I can't type apparently. Okay. And the UI toggle key is basically just non-functional. You can just set it to none because the chest will only open the UI when you click on it. And here are a few options. So I will go over the options menu configuration. You can basically modify all the buttons and add new buttons very easily. Drop item game objects. So essentially, if you're dropping the item game objects when you remove it. Toggle and click. You want to always have it on. Otherwise, you don't have any other way to open the chest UI, right? And you have the container prefab. So for the container prefab, go into, I'm just gonna lock this inspector. So go into XEntity folder, prefab, and drag the container prefab, and it will take a UI canvas. So for that, we'll just add the item container canvas. Perfect. Okay. Now, I think it is now. I think it should work perfectly fine. However, Oh no, okay, so I have edited the default settings. So if I go close enough, you can see this highlights because this is interactable now. And if I click this, you can see a new inventory UI opens, but it's a storage chest title. If I hit I, you can see that inventory UI opens, and we can actually seamlessly drag in between them. So yeah, so when you have one focused, the other one will not be focused automatically. You can see. I will patch this in the next update, but it's not a main concern right now. To fix this, you can just simply just drag it and then it will autofocus. Yeah, so that's that. However, one thing you will notice is that if you click on the items in the player inventory, the option is use, information, remove, bulk remove. If I use, you can see it says using sticks. So essentially you can have your own use functions. However, on the storage chest, when I click on the items, I only have info, remove, and bulk remove, because technically you don't want the player to have use functionalities on an external container, right? You only want the player to use it only it's in their own inventory. So it's really up to preference, but yeah, you can change it very easily, and I will show that now. Okay, let's go and create the options menu. So what I want to create actually is, let me just show you. I want to create a new, let me just add, okay, so I want to create a new options menu, so I can transfer all the items from a storage chest automatically to my inventory with the option button here, right? So to do that, what we need to do is first look at the, go to XEntity folder, settings, interaction settings, yeah, okay. So these are the interaction settings. Oh no, unlock it. Okay, these are the interaction settings here, and in here we can see the internal slot options and the external slot options. So these are the default slot options that that pop up when you click the slots, right? You can reorder them. For example, for the internal slots are basically the player's inventory that the player is directly accessing, right? So it's the dynamic inventory that's always with the player. The external slots are essentially anything that's not the player's direct inventory, like a storage chest or a loot box or anything, right? These are essentially the order of the slot option buttons. So technically you can just change the order here, and that will also change it in the inventory because this is the internal slot. So if you see, if I hit I, have an item, click on this, you can see it change the order. It's now use, bulk remove, and then info, right? So I'll also show how to add new types. So for the external slot, we want to have another type here, which is transfer to inventory, right? So first, we need to go to scripts, inventory and item system, go to slot options, and in here we can add a new slot option, call it transfer to inventory. Okay, and now let's go back to our settings, settings here, and for external slot, add one more, make it transfer to inventory, and let's drag it here so it's right after the item info. Now you will have the button if you open the game now. Go here, add an item to inventory. Let's see, drag this. Okay, and if I click on it, you can see that it's defaulted to transfer to inventory here, right? But it doesn't do anything. So to make it do things and customize the title a little bit, what we can do is go to the item container script. Here, yeah. So in the item container script, just scroll down until you find the hashtag line here, or you can just search for the method create slot options menu. And in here, we can, in the switch statement, we can add a new case for our type, right? So we can do case slot options dot transfer to inventory. Let's break here, and in here technically you can put lambda expression for the on button clicked. So we can also assign a button title. So button title is equal to let's just say transfer, just call it transfer, something short. And you also have to assign the on button clicked event. And you could technically assign it as a lambda expression like this, right? But it's kind of ugly. Also, if you hover over the on button clicked, you will see it has the function items. It has the parameters item slot and interactor, and that's a must. The on button clicked method must have that item slot and interactor as parameter. So if I was creating a lambda, I prefer this notation, delegate, and we have to have this item slot and interactor interactor, and then we can do our function here, right? However, I will just create a new method down here, call it private void on transfer to inventory clicked, and we can also have our item slot and interactor. Oops. Interactor. Okay, perfect. Now we can also add that here on transfer to inventory clicked. Okay, so that's all you have to do, and here we can define our unique function for this button. So we want to transfer the items from this slot, the slot the function is called from, and transfer it to the inventory of the interactor, and the interactor is passed in here conveniently, you can see. So we can use one of the utils methods, so you can call utils.transfer item quantity slot item, or not slot item. It takes in a slot, and it either takes in another item slot, so you can transfer it slot to slot, or you can transfer it slot to an item container. You can transfer slot to interactor dot inventory. So this will essentially transfer it from this slot, or attempt to transfer from items from this slot to this to the interactor's inventory, and you can define an amount. So I want to transfer, let's just say all of them. So we can say slot dot item count. Okay, that's all you have to do. And now if we go back, our button will be functionable. So add these. Well, first we have to move the item to the storage chest. Okay, now if we hit transfer, you can see all the items are added back to the inventory, right? And see, works perfectly fine. Okay, so that's that. That's how you add slot options. Next, another let's see if we, I'm just reading the list. Okay, yeah, so we have another custom function thing that we have to add, which is custom item functions. I haven't shown that yet. So if we go back to our items, I want the apple and the mushroom to be consumable, but you can see it doesn't have a consumable, right? So we can go back to scripts, inventory item system, and find item type. Go into this enum, add a new consumable, or add a new type, call it consumable. Okay, perfect. That works, and we can now go to items, apple and mushroom. We can assign the consumable. However, there's no item functionality. There's no use functionality for this type specifically, right? So what we have to do is go to scripts again and find the item manager script. And in here, if you scroll down a bit, you'll see this hashtag line again, and you have this switch statement, add custom item functions here. So essentially, same thing. You can just add the hardcode the function into the switch statement, but that's gonna clutter up the switch statement. So let's just create a method here, private void consume item. It takes in an item slot. So you could have it not taken the item slot, but since I want to remove the item from the slot when I consume it, I want to have this item slot here. So let's just debug.log you have consumed, and let's just add the slot item name. And after we use it, we just want to remove the item. So slot.remove 1. Okay, so that's going to remove one item from the slot. And if you do slot.remove and drop, this is also going to drop the item into the physical scene, right, the physical world space. Okay, so that's not what we want, because we want it to be used only once. And over here in the switch statement, we can use case item type dot consumable consume item, and we can pass in the slot that's passed in already into this use item when you click the use button. Okay, so that's that. Now if we go back and make sure apple and mushroom is consumable, perfect. Now if we go back, play, customize the, okay, not storage chest, hit I, and if I hit use, this will, you have consumed an apple, and if you look at the number, you can see it decrease by 1. Use, you can see you have consumed mushroom, and they get removed from the inventory. So that's how you add custom item functions. Let's see, what else do I need to show? I need to show the item drop method. So if you go back to the settings here, interaction settings, you'll have this item collector mode. So the item collector mode is set to static, so that's the static collector object that drops, and it has the idle animation, the rotation animation. However, if you set it to physics body, you will actually have it be dropped as free moving rigid bodies. So once you collect it, hit I, let's see, drop, you can see the item is literally dropped as a rigid body, and it moves around when you collide with it, right? Also, when you do that, the items dropped by the trees will also be dropped as rigid bodies, and you have to click on them to, collect it. And you can see they kind of get chaotically thrown around. Perfect. Kind of makes the game look more fun. If you hit I, you can see all the items are added. Okay. Let's see. Also, I think I showed the bulk remove functionality already. You can see if I remove all of them at once, all of them get removed. Right. Okay. Input preferences. So transfer single item. So this is when you're dragging it, you right click, which is mouse 1, to transfer single items to a slot, or transfer half a stack, which is your left shift, and it kind of transfers half of the stack to the hovered slot. So you can change those input. I already showed the external and internal. So this is basically the default settings for the external and internal options. However, you could also change the settings for each container that you make. For example, let's just say I have this chest and I don't want it to follow the default configuration. You can add your custom configuration here. And once you have element into this, and this will automatically use this custom configuration and not the default one. So let's just say I want to have 3 use buttons for some reason here. If I go back, I should really have it set to maximize, but okay. So if I just, if I just drag this here, and if I click, you can see I have the custom configuration, 3 uses for some reason. Okay, let's not do that. So if I just remove all the elements, this will go back to normal. Also, if you go into interaction settings again, you will find the interaction range. So this is where you can modify the interaction range for all interactable objects in this asset, right? Also, you have the auto close external container. So if you have this off, if you go out of the interaction range of the external container, the UI will still stay open. But if you have this on, they will auto close when you're out of range. For set required components, this basically adds any required component to an object if they don't have it, and it does not check for any compatibility issues. This will just force it. And draw range indicators, this is kind of like an editor thing. So all the interactable objects, if you just click this, you can see the storage chest, and the player has like a range indicator drawn. So yeah, I just have this off because it clutters up the scene. Let me show you the auto close function. So if you just click on the inventory, you can see this opens, and if you walk far enough away, the thing already closes. Alright, does that. And last thing is the saving and loading system. So it is pretty simple. The saving and loading will only save the inventory, the item container data, right? Of like, storage chests or your player, but it will not save game objects in the scene. So you will have to find some, other third-party solution for saving the game objects. It's actually not that hard. You just keep track of all the game objects in the scene, and basically assign like a unique ID to each of them, so you can keep track of what is destroyed, right? But there's a lot of things to consider when making a system like that, so I haven't added it to this asset. But you can save the inventory and the external and internal inventory data locally. It doesn't save it on the cloud, so it's saving local JSON files. So technically, you could take that JSON file and have your own method to save it on the cloud and then load it back from the cloud. Okay, so to save inventory, all you have to do is get a reference to whatever item container you want to save. For example, if you want to save this chest, you need to get a reference to this storage chest, this external item container. Or if you're saving the player inventory, you need to get a reference to this player inventory script. And well, what you have to do is do item container dot save data, load data, or delete data, basically. And you have to pass in a save ID. So if you save with the same ID, it will overwrite the data. So for different objects, you want to have different IDs, right? So let's see how to do that. I just have a simple button setup for saving and loading. Of course, you can do it all through code. For example, maybe you want to save and load, or save the data whenever the player quits the game, and load it back up when the game starts. So you can do that through code, right? But I'll just do it through buttons. So save player inventory. So I'll just drag a reference to the player inventory. Oh no, let's add a on-click event first, and then add this player inventory for the object, and navigate to the item container script and save data. And it takes in a ID. For the ID, I will just say test. And also for loading, it's the same thing. Player inventory and item container, load data, test. So for the loading, it will have to have the same ID as the save data. So and also for delete, I will have the same thing. Delete data and test. Okay, so all of this is ID based. So it's always looking for a file name with this ID, right? Okay. Now we can go to the game, maximize, select all my items, and you can see all of these added. And what we can do is hit save, and you can see data successfully saved. That's great. If you get an error, then yeah, there is some error going on with the input output. Now if we start the game, they will not be loaded by default. You can see the game objects are not saved. Okay, so that's that. However, if you open the inventory, you can see the items are not loaded because we have to hit load, and you can see the items are loaded now. So the items get loaded, and this is how you can persist the item containers between scenes, right? You can do the same thing with the storage chest. With the storage chest, if you have items in here, you'll have to get a reference to the script here and call .save.load. And if we delete now, it says delete with ID test, or data with ID test is deleted. Now if we go back and try to load, it says no saved data exists for the provided ID test. So the data has been deleted, right? And if you want to know where the data is saved, it is saved in the persistent data path. the application.persistent data path. For each platform, it is different, but it is a data path where you have permission to access. Okay, that's all I have to show for this video. I believe I covered all the features and I fixed some of the bugs. So if you go to changelog here, you can see here are some of the bugs that were fixed. And I have found some bugs that I will fix on the next patch. And here are all the new features and changes that were added. Okay, so if you have any questions, just let me know. You can either DM me on Discord, which is if you go to the README file, it's actually the information's here. So you can DM me, which is preferred, or you can email me. And I will add a new YouTube link, which is going to be this video here. Yeah, so if you like the asset, just leave a review on the asset store. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you.